In the time before the great rains forgot the high valleys, there lived a girl named Shelly who could not run. Her lungs were thin as moth wings, and each breath she drew was a small, careful theft. She spent her days by the window of her family's stone cottage, watching the pines bend and straighten, as if the forest itself were breathing. Her mother called it a wasting sickness. Her father called it a curse from the north wind. Shelly called it waiting. One autumn evening, when the mist came down like a second skin over the mountain, a figure stepped out of the trees. It was neither man nor woman, but something older, a rustle of birch bark, a crown of lichen, eyes the color of deep well water. The forest's breath, the villagers named it later. That night, it simply stood at the edge of the garden until Shelly unlatched the window. "You have watched the wind so long," said the creature. Its voice was the sound of dry leaves skittering across slate. "You have borrowed my breath with your looking. Now I offer a bargain." Shelly, who had not spoken above a whisper in 2 winters, pressed her palm to the cold glass. "What bargain?" "I will lend you the forest's lungs," said the creature. "You will command the wind, to lift a feather, to snap a branch, to carry your voice across 3 valleys. But breath is not a gift. It is a loan. For every gust you steal from me, you must plant a memory in return." "What kind of memory?" The creature smiled. A beetle crawled out of its mouth and fell silently into the moss. "Not yours. Mine. The forest has forgotten what it means to mourn. You will remember for it, and the remembering will carve a hollow in you where your own breath used to live." Shelly did not hesitate. She had never climbed a tree. She had never shouted into a storm. She reached through the window, and the creature pressed a cold, root-like hand to her chest. Her lungs opened like a fist uncurling. For the first time she breathed deep. The next morning, she blew a dried leaf from her windowsill across the room. By noon, she spun the windmill in the village square until its wooden arms sang. By dusk she called a breeze that lifted her mother's laundry from the line and set it down gently, folded on the doorstep. Her parents wept with joy. But that night, as Shelly slept, the first hollow came. She dreamed of a 100-year drought. She felt the roots of the oldest oak cracking open, dry and screaming. She woke with ash in her mouth and a hole behind her ribs the size of a walnut. The memory was not hers. It belonged to the forest. 3 days passed. Shelly learned to push the clouds apart like curtains. She blew a stray kite into a child's waiting hands. She nudged a rainstorm away from the harvest. Each active wind gust left a new hollow, a wildfire on the eastern ridge, a winter that snapped the legs of a deer. A landslide that buried a stream's voice. The hollows multiplied. Walnut, then apple, then fist. Shelly's own breath began to thin again, not because her lungs were weak, but because there was less of her left to breathe. She could gust a chimney smoke into a dragon's shape, but she could no longer remember the color of her own cradle blanket. That space was gone, filled with the forest's grief. "It hurts," she told the creature, when it returned on the 7th night. "The remembering." "Yes," said the creature, sitting on her windowsill, like a bundle of wet twigs. "You are learning the forest's oldest truth. To be strong is to carry what others cannot. You asked for wind. I did not say it would be kind." Shelly pressed her hand to her chest. The hollows thrummed like empty bells. "Can I give it back?" "You can stop borrowing," said the creature. "But the hollows will remain. They are your debt paid. The forest will not give you back what you have already spent." Shelly looked out at the pines. They were still tonight, waiting. She understood now. They did not bend because the wind was strong. They bent because they had swallowed so many storms, they no longer remembered how to stand straight. She made her choice. Instead of commanding the wind, she began to ask. A tiny gust to lift a spiderweb to safety. A sigh of air to cool her father's neck while he split wood. A murmuring breeze to carry a lullaby to the baby in the next cottage. Small things, gentle things. Each time, she borrowed less. Each time the forest's memories grew quieter, as if they had finally been heard. The creature came one last time at winter solstice. It looked smaller now, less like bark and more like an old woman leaning on a knotted cane. "You have not stopped borrowing," it said, "but you have changed the price." I remember every grief the forest lent me, said Shelly. But I have begun to plant new memories over them. The smell of bread, the weight of a cat purring on my chest, the sound of my mother laughing. The creature tilted its head. Those are not forest memories. No, said Shelly. But I am not the forest, I am the girl who borrowed its breath. And I think the forest forgot that grief grows lighter when it is shared, not carried. The creature was silent a long time. Then it reached out and touched Shelly's cheek. Where its fingers passed, a pale scar remained. Not a hollow, but a line, like the seam where two pieces of wood are joined. You have kept the wind, said the creature. But you have also kept yourself. That is not what I expected. It stepped back into the mist. For a moment Shelly thought she saw it bow, a single stiff inclination of its birch bark head. Then the forest exhaled, and the creature was gone. Shelly lived to be old. She never ran, not once. But she walked to the river every morning, and the wind walked with her. But as her sister, she spoke to storms and they listened. She calmed wildfires with a whisper. And every autumn, when the leaves turned and fell, she gathered one handful of the smallest, brownest leaf, and placed it on the stones outside her window. For the forest, she would say, it has remembered enough. And the wind, gentle now, would lift that leaf and carry it somewhere deep into the trees, where, if you listen very carefully, you can still hear a girl's borrowed breath, singing the forest's griefs to sleep. So ends the tale of Shelly, who taught the wind that mercy is not the absence of storms, but the choice to bow without breaking.